Greetings, folks, and welcome to today's show. We have not done much with education at the secondary level in the last few months, so we thought it was maybe past time to kind of catch up on that. So we have not one but two guests with us today. Dr. Dan Lawson, which of course who we're all quite familiar with, and he brought along with him, because we want to get into the technology business, he brought his expert Susan Sudbury with him. So Susan, thank you for joining us. And I did want to mention just quickly in passing, folks, that Dr. Lawson is not in the job market at the moment, so things look relatively peaceful. Well, we're coming down toward the end of a term. How does the system look to you?
You know, the state of affairs of the school system right now we think is good. We think we're a school system that is dynamic, that's growing, that's really trying to meet the needs of our community, trying to meet the needs of our kids, and responsive to the changes that we've seen in the world around us. Technology is one of those pieces. Global understanding is one of those pieces. Developing habits associated with work is one of those pieces. We want kids to leave our school and our program well-rounded, prepared to be successful parents, successful partners in life, and successful employees and citizens.
And so they're leaving your system with global understanding.
We hope they're improving in that endeavor. We hope they're improving in that endeavor.
That's got to be interesting, yeah. So, all right. Well, let's, with that introduction, let's take a short commercial break, folks, and we'll come back and get into business.
All I have to do to think about what I was physically before and what I am now, and I don't ever want to go back to that original situation.
The overall mission of the rehab team is always what is best for the patient and how we can facilitate maximum potential from every resident.
Well, the most important thing to me is that I'm allowed to do whatever I want to do, you know.
Everyday Miracles, Life Care Center of Tullahoma.
Tired of paying for monthly telephone service, expensive long-distance bills, and all those crazy taxes? Are you sick of spending money on telephone equipment, maintenance contracts, and service calls, all for a phone system that shackles you to 100-year-old technology and your desk? Stop it. It's time to ship your phone system to the cloud. What can the cloud do for you? Bring together remote offices, workers, and employees in the field. Make sure that you'll never miss calls by delivering them to multiple devices. Modernize faxing by allowing multiple faxes to be sent and received at once. And deliver to email. Get your voicemail messages instantly through email too. And take advantage of an endless supply of customizable features. Host My Calls can deliver the cloud. All of this technology with low upfront costs and not one penny in capital expense. It's time for a phone solution you'll truly love from Host My Calls. Call the number below.
We're back, folks, and today we are talking education as a general subject with Dr. Dan Lawson, and he brought his technology expert, Susan Sudbury, with him, and we want to get caught up on the technology end of the business a little bit later. So let's begin. You haven't had much static out of the legislature this year. Things have been kind of quiet. Is everybody hung up on the gas tax?
You know, I think that the governor announced early in the session that his priority was going to be to affect something in his Improve Act to affect roads and the corresponding gas tax. An awful lot of dialogue, an awful lot of discussion has been devoted to that. So there really hasn't been too many big issues. And that hasn't been resolved yet. No, I think they're still talking as of this morning as to how they're going to fix that. So both a good and bad byproduct of that is there have been fewer educational issues that have been brought to the forefront, and are under consideration right now.
I know I'm satisfied. I would think if I were in your position that I'd always be nervous when the legislature convenes, because there ain't no telling which way they're going.
You know, I think Will Rogers kind of spoke to that as he suggested the only time one is safe is when Congress is home.
Home, yeah. Okay. One other subject that we ought to touch on that is a perennial, and that is testing. And I haven't heard much about that either, but it's a dangling participle still out there somewhere.
Oh, if it were only a participle. Yeah, here's our challenge with testing. Testing is a program that costs our state millions of dollars every year. And certainly if we're going to make that kind of investment, last year we looked at over $20 million that we invested. If we're going to make that kind of investment, we want something tangible that we can hold and ideally that we can use with our kids. Last year, by all accounts, we had an abysmal failure. The firm that was employed to assess students in the state of Tennessee was fired by the Tennessee Department of Education. And so we're now restructuring and now attempting to retest with basically the same standards, the same questions, but provided by a different carrier, provided by a different firm. One of the things that we tried to do last year was to assess online. And online assessment is not new for most of us. We've seen that in a lot of venues, but our upstream carrier couldn't support roughly 600,000 kids trying to test last year. So the system crashed. And with that corresponding crash, we rolled out this year with a pilot for online assessments. But most of the assessments that take place are going to be paper pencil, much like the assessments that were used when I was in school several decades ago. Your follow-up question ought to be, can't we do better than that?
I was just going to say, how long has this been going on?
Yeah, and Tom, you've captured it well. We can do better than that. We do better than that in a lot of venues and a lot of places. We provide online service today and online assessment today, but when they go back into one pot at the state level, and then when that pot has to push into their value-added matrices, it becomes more complex and it becomes more cumbersome. And the real challenge with that is we end up testing only for accountability, and the value of the test for the consumer, for the student, and for the parent becomes minimal because they don't get feedback in a timely manner. And the teachers, like Susan, aren't able to take those data and then reframe the instruction for any value. It's just about accountability. We could and should do better, and we certainly hope we get that way. Tullahoma has worked a lot to see the testing be focused on the ACT suite. Now, it's not because we have some partnership with ACT. It's because when I think about my 3 kids and they're attending Tullahoma High School, there were 2 tests that really meant anything to them. One determined whether or not they were going to drive. And the second test that meant anything to them was their ACT, because it determined where they were going to go to college and how much money they would get in terms of scholarships. And that ACT meant something in Tullahoma or in Tallahassee. The challenge with 10 Ready or a local grown test is you don't have that portability, and once you leave the community, you don't know what those norms mean. So that's why we've been a big proponent of ACT, and we hope that at some point in time, logic prevails and others see the light, if you will.
And the ACT is being used, you got to count? How many states are still
in terms of states that use the ACT as that indicator of progress, that ACT suite, is probably less than 10. In terms of colleges that use the ACT, everyone in the nation does.
Well, that's incredible. But Okay. I had a kind of an interesting blurb popped up recently. There was, I forgot how the complaint came up now, the fact that our kids were not able to pass a civics test. How does our system, how does our government work, you know? And one number I saw said that there was, and this didn't apply to Tullahoma, but in the system that was being looked at, something like 2% of the students were able to pass the test that was given to immigrants who are applying for citizenship.
Right, right.
And 2%. Whereas the immigrants were up in the 90s. So they're being taught and tested in the same direction. But that sort of got passed over as far as Tullahoma was concerned. There didn't seem to be any concern about it, and I don't know whether we have any way to measure it. It's just...
Not only do we have a way to measure it, we have a requirement that we must do so. In the General Assembly, I believe 2 years ago, legislation was enacted that said we have to have a test issued to our students. And Susan, I believe we've incorporated that in our government textbook and in some of the materials that we use. But that particular assessment is pulled, in fact, from the same question bank that our immigrants use to gain citizenship status. So we do have that test right now. It's a test that our students are compelled to pass before they leave high school.
Good, good. Things were not all that clear. Okay, let's talk about jobs training. That's a subject that is difficult to keep up at the top of the list. There are always a lot of other things that are competing for interest, but it's one in which, at a very basic level, our employers, our industry in particular, are in constant complaint that they're not getting qualified applicants. They can't hire, and it's a big number, and it's a continuing problem. So, what are we doing about that? Is it because I'm just not quite that up on what's going on, or is there more going on there than I'm aware of?
I think workforce development has been a big issue, and it's become a bigger issue as our employment numbers are as high as they are. It's become a challenge because we have a culture that suggests to be successful in the workplace, you've got to go to college and you've got to go get an advanced degree. And I would want to amend that a little bit. I would suggest that to be an effective worker, you got to show up, you got to be responsible, you got to be coachable, you got to listen, and you've got to embrace the idea that you're going to be a lifelong learner. It really doesn't matter where you're employed or what you're doing. There is going to be integration of technology. There's going to be integration of many areas where you're expected to continue to learn. And in schools, too often,
things are going to be changing constantly.
It's a dynamic world, and in schools, too often, we have tied that to a university rather than tied it to places where, candidly, jobs are much more abundant. Those jobs provide great capacity for families. They provide great value for our economy. And I think that we really have to all do a deep search as to our heart and our mindset to make sure that we understand the honor in honest work, and we train folks to find places where they fit and flourish.
Well, everybody needs to understand, you know, that in order for them to go into industry and keep up with the technology going on, you still got to be pretty smart.
Absolutely.
You got to have all of the background stuff there. That's so, and that continues to increase. It was interesting. I saw a number that indicated that the amount of change going on in advanced manufacturing was over twice as much as that in the regular manufacturing stream.
Right.
So, the longer we go, the smarter we get. Well, guess what? We have run out of time, folks. We need to take a short commercial break, and we'll come back and we're going to talk technology.
Keith Barnett here with the Russell Barnett Automotive family. Over 75% of car shoppers today use the internet to search for their new or pre-owned vehicle. That's why the RussellBarnett.com website is so versatile, where you can check it anytime, all the time, online. You can search through our new and pre-owned inventory by make, model, mileage, or price. We can value your trade-in and get you pre-approved for financing before you even walk in the door. So check out RussellBarnett.com, and remember, why buy anywhere else?
It's time for every family and business in Tullahoma to go green and recycle. Tullahoma Public Works makes it simple and easy to recycle. Just place your recyclable materials, paper, plastic, aluminum, and cardboard beside your garbage container on the same day your garbage is picked up. Your recycled materials don't have to be in a fancy container. Recycling is not only the right thing to do, it makes sense. Recycling pays. Paying to bury our garbage costs each of us. Please do your part. Let's go green, Tullahoma, and recycle.
It's your trademark. That's something special everyone knows and remembers. It's your thing. It's made holidays special for decades, and summers unforgettable for the entire neighborhood. It's made everyone laugh every single time. Don't let illness or injury keep you from doing your thing. The rehab team at Life Care Center of Tullahoma is ready to help you live well.
I'm meteorologist Leland Statham from the News Channel 5 Weather Center. Look to Jim Fuller and crew for local news night here on Channel 6.
We're talking education today, folks, and we have Dr. Dan Lawson with us, and he brought along his technology expert, Susan Sudbury, and so we're kind of going to lean on Susan. I can remind you that Tullahoma has been into the technology approach to education now for 3 years or better, and so we want to see how that's working and whether it's working, and then she has a significant event coming up that we're going to be hosting this summer. So, Susan, just however you want to approach this, just bring everybody up to date on what the Tullahoma school system looks like from a technology standpoint.
In 2013, our district looked at implementing a one-to-one device initiative for students in grades 3 through 12. We also began a process of curating and developing open educational resources in social studies.
What does that mean?
That means that we can go out on the internet and we can look for quality, rigorous materials that we can take, download, we can edit those materials, we can share those materials, we can distribute, we can add to, take away, and we're not violating any type of copyright law because of the license that has been attributed to those types of materials. So while our teachers in years past, even when I was in the classroom, would gather materials and store them in a filing cabinet, we can now search for those materials online and form our own digital file locker of those materials and then deliver those to our students in a digital environment.
Digital environment. Are you out of the book business?
No, we're not out of the book business. I still like the feel of paper when I'm on the beach reading a book, but no, we're not out of the book business. There are some books that we can't replace with an open educational resource such as your AutoCAD book, but we can in some subject areas such as your math or your social studies and somewhat in your English and your science. But with these materials, we can easily update those that content so that you're actually giving students a living document. You know, if something happens in the science world or the social studies world with the election of a new president or the Curiosity rover landing, we can instantly update the materials for our students so they're not relying on a textbook that was published 7 years prior and are still being used in the classroom today. So that's an advantage that we have with these open educational resources.
And what do you say if if I come along and say, well, cripes, if every teacher has the ability to just develop her own material, what sort of standard is being used out there? Is this everybody going in their own direction?
That's a great question. Yeah, I couldn't shut up long, could I? That's a great question in that everything that we have developed, everything that's done under our auspices is built around the state standards. So the state standards, if you will, serve as that table of contents, as that index of those topics to be included, and then our teachers are tasked, our curators are tasked with finding content connected with those particular standards and make that content align with the people, places, and things that our kids understand. So if we have a social studies dialogue that talks about a mayor of a city, it's really nice to have our textbook with a picture of perhaps a third grade student and Mayor Curley there. Or a discussion of a state senator. We've got Senator Bowling in our stuff rather than some nebulous concept and name that our folks don't get. And Susan, I'll shut up because I talk too much.
You did that well.
All right. So you do have a standard in the sense that whatever their material they're taking offline still has to meet the state standard that's set out for that material. Susan, how does this work in the classroom? What's taking place?
That's a great question. Our teachers have access to something called a learning management system, and that is basically a digital platform that they can organize and manage the resources within their instructional environment. So they can deliver these open educational resources via that platform. But we all know that students may bring their device to school and that device may not be charged, or the device may be in for repair. So the beauty of what we're doing is the fact that all of those resources can be downloaded and printed and handed to a student in a paper form. So they're not left behind because they don't necessarily have that device with them that day. So everything that we're doing can not only be housed in the digital environment, but it also can be housed in a static environment as well.
Well, that's kind of interesting. And let's, while we touched on that, let's clarify that. You're now providing, I guess you're still using the Chromebook.
Yes, sir.
For every student 3 through 12.
3 through 12.
And they've all got them. And they all take them home with them if they choose.
Yes,
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And are they being abused? How's that working? Are you having a big replacement problem? Anybody?
Yeah, it's working like abuse of any property works. Some take great care, and some may treat the device like it's a expendable item. We purchased with a service contract that took care of those devices. Part of citizenship is learning to take care of property, and we have some who do an exceptional job, and we have some who don't. And it's just like a textbook in terms of those who care for it, care for their textbooks, and those who don't do such a good job treat it just like they would a textbook.
And probably the textbook they tore up cost more than the Chromebook, huh?
When we're looking at a $100 textbook, it just takes 2 or 3 of those to equal a price of that Chromebook. Yes, sir.
We're just about to run out of time, folks, and there's one other thing we wanted to make sure we touch on. Susan, tell them about your regional summit this this summer? What's coming?
Tullahoma City Schools is hosting a Go Open Regional Summit, to where we have extended an invitation to school systems within Tennessee and beyond its boundaries. We will have district leaders and teachers leaders coming to our school at Tullahoma High School and learning about open educational resources, how to find those resources, how to develop those resources, how to deliver those resources from a teacher perspective, but also from an administrative perspective. We're going to talk about creating your own vision and how to implement your vision, and some of the successes and some of those things that we had to change along the way.
How many folks are you expecting, and who's paying the bill?
We are expecting over 200 participants, and we are getting close to that mark now. And we have some vendors that have contributed to helping us sponsor this event.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, folks, we have run out of time. We're going to have to take another short commercial break and wrap it up.
Buying a vehicle can be hard. It's even harder if you have poor credit health. But let the team here with Dr. Credit at Russell Barnett Kia help you. With our guaranteed credit approval process, we can help you find your next vehicle. But don't just take that from me. Here's a few of our customers and what they had to say.
They said they could approve us, and then the next thing was how much monthly. I thought it was going to be way too much. And sure enough, he did it what we asked for, what we needed it to be. He did it within. He will help you out.
Schedule your appointment with Dr. Credit at Russell Barnett Kia so you can drive away happy.
Get your news first, fast, and free with your news leader on 6 every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday nights at 6, 8, and 10 p.m. Local weather, sports, community calendar events, and a comprehensive look at the latest news stories and news makers as only a video news broadcast can do. Get it first, fast, and free with News Leader on Channel 6, your local information network.
We've been trying to catch up a little bit on education today, folks, and we've had Dr. Dan Lawson with us, and he brought along Susan Sudbury, who is his technology expert, and we're in pretty good shape in that respect too. In that Tullahoma is a pretty leading group. So, Dan, you got something quickie you want to put out to the folks?
Almost always. I think what I would like to have folks clearly understand is that technology is not about replacing skilled, loving teachers with a digital box. Instead, it's about finding ways to better connect our students with the world around them and with things of interest to them. And as they find those ways, our teachers have the opportunity to interface more personally with our students, and we think that's really valuable to us. I don't want a perception to exist that a teacher sits back and there's no personal interaction.
Yeah, okay. All right, I want to thank both of you for taking time to join us today, and thank you folks for inviting us into your parlor, and we will see you next time.